Hi, Danville. Alan Shields here, Chief of Police, and sorry about that. It looks like our opening video is somehow MIA. So today we've got a good show for you. We're going to talk about some of the thefts that have occurred in town. We're also going to go over some outreach events that we have for you. We're going to cap off our series on emergency prep, and we're just going to kind of do a quick summary. And then on our final thought, we're going to talk about threat assessment and what your police department does to engage with the community to keep all of us safe. So stay tuned for all of that. I do want to highlight a way that you can contribute right now to making Danville safer, and that's to look at our city streets. But first off, this is a live show. If you have a question, throw it in the chat. I'm going to look at the chat here on Facebook, and if it's something that I can answer during the show, I'll be more than happy to answer during the show. If I can't, what I'll do is I'll research after and I'll put it in the chat. So I'll put my notes there in the chat. So how can you make Danville safer? Let's look at our roadway safety plan. We have a local roadway safety plan. Here, let me see if I can get that back up. And this is something where you can go online and contribute, and you can drop a pin, or you can put a box around an area that you feel is unsafe, and then you can let us know how you feel that that area is unsafe. This is the part where you contribute. You tell us where you would like our transportation department to focus on. Our manager's working really hard on this program, but he needs your input to help make it better. Ways you can engage with us. We're going to be doing another Coffee with the Cops event June 4th between 10 and noon. Now, I just want you to note, if my calendar's right, June 4th, let me double check before I say the wrong thing here. June 4th is a Saturday, so this is one of the first times we're doing one on a Saturday. So join us June 4th between 10 and noon at Lunardi's Market, 345 Railroad Avenue. We're going to be out there, and this is an opportunity to engage with us face-to-face. If you have any concerns or questions, or you just want to speak to some officers or get to know us a little bit better, that's a great opportunity. And we also are going to have a fundraising section for the Special Olympics. So what I would ask is, if you're interested in donating to the Special Olympics, that is a great opportunity. There's also a link in the description below. So if you just want to do it right from your computer, you can do that. The money that we raise goes directly to the Special Olympics of Northern California and helps to support local athletes here. It allows them the opportunity to compete, but beyond the competition, it also helps fund health screenings for our athletes. So please, if you have the opportunity to give, I would encourage you to give. Link is below in the description. All right, let's look at crime. Community crime. I can't get PowerPoint to work, apparently. CommunityCrimeMap.com. You can go and you can receive updates on what is going on in your area. You'll get an email right to your inbox. And if we look at this last week, well, that date's wrong. So how about we do May 16 through 22? The numbers are right, though. We did have 5 thefts. If you can see, they were sprinkled all over town. And we only had one injury collision, one reported injury collision. The significant events, though, is we had several catalytic converter thefts. On May 17th, we had a catalytic converter theft on Fostoria Circle. We were pretty fortunate, and I'm sorry the screen keeps bugging out on us, but we were pretty fortunate that the company where it was stolen from was able to get some information through their video. We were able to link it up, and so we do have a good lead on that one. On the 17th, there was also a theft of an electric scooter that was locked in a stairwell of an apartment. Again, when we talk about locks, we've talked about this before on the show. There's different levels of locks. You can get just a simple combination lock with a cable. Those are actually really easy to cut. In fact, on our bait bike that we have out in the field, the one where we put a GPS tracker on it and we kind of hope people steal our property and not yours, we actually just use a cable lock because we know that sometimes some of them are so cheap you can twist them off with a pair of pliers. You can cut them with wire cutters or bolt cutters. The second one would be a chain lock. It's usually a little bit harder steel, usually provides a little bit better security. And then the third would be that thick U-lock, and that's a very thick hardened metal, very hard to cut. In fact, you're going to have to use a saw or an angle grinder or something similar. If we're continuing on the 18th, we had property stolen from a locked vehicle on El Capitan. And then on the 19th, we had 2 catalytic converter thefts, one on Val Vista Drive and one on Country Hills School. I was at a meeting earlier today, and this was the topic because these catalytic converter thefts are really significant all over the county. And the motivation behind it is the precious metals that are inside. When the crooks break those catalytic converters down, they're able to get between $500 and $1,000 per catalytic converter. And so that is a huge advantage to them. And so our recommendation is if it's a car that you can maybe put in a garage, we recommend that. If you park, make sure you park in a well-lit area, maybe something with motion lights or cameras. And then if you drive a car that might be more likely to have a catalytic converter stolen, so like your Toyota Priuses, we'd recommend maybe even seeking out a mechanic that can install one of those catalytic converter anti-theft plates, a plate that simply blocks the area where they typically cut in order to take the catalytic converter. But it is a theft that we're seeing on the rise, and so we wanted everyone to be aware of that. All right, so let's look at accidents in town. This is the one. It was an injured collision on Laurel Drive near Laurel Court. So that's still within that downtown corridor. We talk a lot on the show that about a third of our accidents occur in that downtown corridor. That's where you will tend to see us focusing in that downtown corridor. And I'm going to apologize because I don't remember who actually asked last week, but there were actually several that came over the top and said, Camino Tasajara is a racetrack, and I am spacing on your name. So I'm going to apologize. I want to give credit where credit's due. Last week's show, someone jumped in the chat and said, Camino Tasajara, 6 a.m., go out there, and that's when you're going to see people speeding. So our traffic officer came in. Hey, Chief, where can I work? I said, go out to Camino Tas. I need you out there at 6 in the morning. He goes out there and he writes, like 8 or 9 tickets within a short period of time. One of them for going 76 miles an hour. 76 on Camino Tasajara. Now, I can tell you from my time being here that is way too fast. In fact, there was a period of time about like 5 or 6 years ago where we had 2 collisions on the section of Camino Tas where it bends a little bit, where cars slid into the center median, so the area where there's a raised curb and trees, and it actually split the cars in 2. So that is an incredible amount of force. We were very fortunate in both of those that they didn't end in fatalities, but 76 miles an hour is entirely too fast to be going on Camino Tasajara. The speed limit's 45, and I know when I'm riding on it, I'm in that 45 to 50 window, and obviously my personal car, and people are, fighting to get past me. So it is something that we're aware of. We do see it when we're in our personal cars. Amazing how when we're in a black and white, no one is riding our tail or fighting to pass us. I get it. But we will make sure that we're out there. And I'm looking, Kim looks like she's jumping in on this saying, yes, it was us. And at 12:30 this morning, someone was doing donuts on Community Tas at Knollview. So we will pass that on to our graveyard folks, and we'll get them out there doing that. Enforcement out there as well. But you can understand, every week we talk on the show about the accidents and where they're occurring in town, and you can see that they're occurring in that downtown corridor during the daytime hours. So you can imagine that that's where we tend to focus a lot of our time. But I wanted to say that when you tell us that there is speeding in an area, stop signs, violations, we do go out there. And I think it was 2 weeks ago, we had someone say the stop signs on Camino Ramon were a problem. We had folks down there doing stop sign enforcement as well. And this is even though there's no accidents in that area, we still went out there to do the enforcement because we know that your observations are somewhat predictive of the accidents that may occur. All right. I'm going to check the chat real quick before we move on to our emergency prep and see if there's any questions. Again, live show. If you have any questions, go ahead and throw a question in the chat. Bob Ficken, hello. Great to see you. Like Bob Ficken, longtime viewer, contributor, mentor to me, and so glad to see you're up in Sandpoint enjoying life up there. All right, so let's move on. Let's go to wildfire prep. So I'm just going to sum it up real quick, and I just want to cover some high points. And if anything that I'm going to tell you right now interests you, what I'll encourage you to do is click the link in the description to go to Community Warning System Alerts. That is a great hub for community preparedness information. It's where our wildfire preparedness guide is. But also, if there's something that interests you, we had 4 weeks of this for the last 4 weeks. Go check out one of the previous shows and dive into one of those topics. We'll see if we can reset that one more time. So go to the Contra Costa County Community Warning System Alerts website. That's cwsalerts.com. And there is a wonderful guide there. Lieutenant Aldrett, or Chief Aldrett over at Lafayette PD, worked with La Miranda Fire and Contra Costa Fire to get that set up. It's a great wildfire guide. And the bottom line is, this is what it will help you do, is it'll help you to prepare your home should there be an emergency. It will help structure a plan. It'll help you structure that plan. It will provide you ideas for how you can make a kit so that you have the things that you need. It will help you stay informed. It's going to provide you different ways that you can stay informed. Our goal on the Stay Informed is we want to provide information to you in the area that you already are. So if you're a big Twitter person, follow us on Twitter. We always recommend, though, that you jump on your phone, and if you take one thing out of today's show, send a text message to 888-777, 888-777. Send a text message, and in that, put your zip code. So if it was Danville, we would just put 94526, 94506. If you wanted Alamo in there, put 94507. You can put all the zip codes in there that you want, and if there is an incident occurring in that zip code that requires an emergency response or for you to be alerted, it will get pushed right to your phone via text message, and there will be a link to additional information. The final thing is to know your neighbors. We want to make sure that people are engaging and working with their neighbors. Last week, we had a Citizens Academy guest that brought up a question, and it kind of flowed right into all hazards. We tend to focus primarily on this show with wildfires, earthquakes, those sort of things, the things that we think are probably the most common. And the reason is we believe that if you prepare for those events, should an event that's maybe closely related, you'll already have some preparation in place. But we did want to let everybody know that FEMA has this guide, and there is a link in the description. FEMA has this guide, and it is a checklist. So if you're a kind of geeky military guy like me, I lived on checklists when I was in the military. Everything was a checklist. In fact, kind of a side note, I was involved in 2 in-flight emergencies where our plane, as we're flying on it, actually caught fire. And the other one, it rapidly decompressed. So our pilot's phenomenal, had to go down. And the first thing I did was I reached for my checklist, and we worked at what our roles were and how to get through the problem. So I'm a fan of checklists. The reason I like them is these are the events that you hope never happen, but should they happen, you'll have some awareness of what you need to do, but then you'll have some detailed ideas on what you can do. And in light of what happened, I do want to acknowledge the events in Uvalde, Texas. It's sad, but every time one of these events happens, it's a tragedy, and it makes us pause. It causes us to show some concern and to think about what we may, as community members, do different. First, we want to honor and respect those that were in that situation and were impacted by the killing, and it really is sad. It breaks my heart every time that we see something like that. And what we hope is that we can do what we can to best prepare to not have that happen here. And then should something like that happen, are we prepared to minimize the loss? So all today, I've been getting emails and phone calls and questions about, hey, what are you doing as a town? What do you do for the police department? First off, recognizing that this event occurred at a school and it caused some restlessness with our student population, our staff, and our parents, right? Like, everybody's wanting to know, what are we going to do? We got together, and a lot of people worked. I had people staying late that worked all night long, and they stayed additional hours this morning so that we could go out to our schools, our public elementary, middle, and high schools, our private schools, and we could post up and show a physical presence, like, hey, we are here for you. And I've received a lot of positive feedback on that. And it's just important for the community to know that we're here and that we are ready. But I had a lot of questions about, what happens if you get a report that maybe there's someone that needs to be looked at, or there's someone that made a threat or sent a text message or posted something online. And then also the other was, what do you do? What have our schools done to prepare, and what are you doing with your schools? And, I'm I'm the police department, so I don't speak on behalf of the school, so I'm not going to tackle that question. But what I will say is that we work very hard with the schools, and I'll cover what we provide to all community members as a service from the police department, and that would include our schools. So it'll be an all-encompassing report on that. But let's talk about what happens when we get a tip. And there's lots of ways that we get tips. We get them. Sometimes people call me on the phone. I get an email. Sometimes we get them through Facebook, or Nextdoor. We'll get a private message. We've gotten them phone calls through dispatch. We've got them through anonymous tip lines from some of our schools. However we get that information, what we're going to do is we're going to immediately launch an investigation, and we're going to try to determine what actually is happening. And what we use is we typically will use crimes. We're trying to determine if a crime has occurred or not. Are there criminal threats or are there not? If there is no crime, and that's frankly what most of them are no crimes. If there's no crime, then we also look and say, okay, is there a potential for maybe a mental health evaluation? Is there a need that this person may have where they require some additional assistance? And we've got a good program here in-house that we've had since about 2015, and that's led by Lauren Brown. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist that's been employed with the town for, I think, over 9 years now. Since 2015, she's managed a program where we keep track of all of the people that either have been committed or maybe are close and in mental health crisis. And what she'll do is she'll work with the families and see if there's services that we can provide, if there's services we can direct them to. And on a larger scale, if we need to make a referral to some of our local agencies, we'll do that as well. And what I'll ask people to do is, if you really want an in-depth analysis or look at what we do, go to my annual report this year. It's on my Chiefs page, and there's a whole section dedicated to mental health. But in short, we've got different responses. We have a mobile crisis response team that will respond if someone's in the middle of crisis. If there's someone that we feel needs additional help, we have what's called a mental health evaluation team. And that's a clinician that's paired with a deputy, and they will go and they will repeatedly look after and work with people to make sure that they're getting the help that they need. And in severe cases, it may be necessary to actually commit the person for an evaluation. And that's something that our officers here in town do. If they feel that the person in this threat assessment has committed no crime, but is in need of immediate mental health, they will work to get them mental health services by way of a commitment, or commonly referred to as a 5150. And so we can send them that way as well. The final thing is, and this is something that's unique to the state of California, there are other states that have it, but we have a gun violence restraining order program. It can be initiated by a family member, a close family member, or by law enforcement. So if there's a situation where we feel that someone is a danger to themselves or others, but they don't meet the criteria for a commitment, and they have access to guns, we can use that gun violence restraining order. We can petition the court to have the guns taken away that they are currently in possession of. It also covers their, it's an order for them not to go and buy more guns, and it'll cover a 21-day period until they can go in front of a judge and see if they can make it either permanent or release them from that restraining order. So there are things that happen, and I know that this isn't often publicized and you don't often see it, but when there's events like this that take place across the nation, people have questions and they want to know, okay, well, what does happen if there's a tip? What happens if there's someone that you see that may be needs some additional help? In addition to that, kind of the great thing about working for the sheriff's office is we're such a large agency here, and our sheriff has made it public safety very important. We actually have a deputy that is assigned to what we call NCRIC. It's a Northern California Regional Information Center. It's a fusion center. There's a lot of three-letter agencies there, DEA, FBI, Homeland Security, and they're all there, and so it is a great source of information. So when we get reports of suspicious activity, we feed them up through NCRIC, and then NCRIC also pushes that information out to us by way of reports. So we're connected to the greater Bay Area community, so we're aware of other things that may be going on that are potentially hazardous here in Danville. Let me cover one thing real quick. So we do offer, in talking about how we work and I'm sorry, I'm working through some PowerPoint issues here, but we do offer training to businesses, to maybe commercial complexes, to schools. We've even done it to homeowners associations. It's a good program. It's put on by the Department of Homeland Security. FBI endorses it, and it is an active threat or active shooter training. It's called Run, Hide, Fight. It's not meant to can't get that to stick. It's not meant to be something to teach people how to respond like a law enforcement officer would, but the whole idea is to teach people to act, to avoid inaction. And it is something that we offer free of service. We've done it to the schools several times throughout the years, and it's something that we've done it either to individual schools. We've provided this training. We've also provided it to all of the district in partnership with San Ramon Police at teacher and staff development days. So the school district here is very engaged, and we've also offered it to our private schools, and we've been to some of our private schools, we've been to some of our faith institutions, and we've been to some of our business centers, and we've offered them all the same training. And the idea is we want to be out there so that they know what they can do to help mitigate damage and loss, and then what they can expect from law enforcement should they come. But the whole idea is two things. One, have a good safety plan and have a good communication strategy on how you're going to let law enforcement know that there's an issue. So that is something that we do offer. But let's take a look at this real quick. This is something that we throw up from time to time, and it's our crime triangle. This is our basic crime triangle. It works for any crime. There's 3 pillars here. There's a motivated offender, a lack of suitable site management, and then a suitable target or victim. So motivated offender, that is the tip. So that's the tip we receive. If we're pointing in a direction where we think there might be a motivated offender, that's when we work on the threat assessment. Our victim group, those are the people. And that's where the education comes in. That's where we will go, and we will work with institutions, schools, faith institutions to help train their folks on what they can do to help in case these emergencies happen. The third part is the site management, and that's actually the physical location. And so a lot of times what we'll do is we'll review safety plans for schools and faith institutions, and we will check those out and make sure that there's I think the best way to put it is we'll make sure that there aren't common errors in there that are big gaping holes for risk. A big one, for example, would be having multiple access points throughout the day. We try to offer our advice to limit that to one. Make sure you have the greeter at the front door. If you ever think of some of our, the Nordstroms or some of the shops you go into, someone says, "Hi, welcome to Nordstrom's. How can I help you?" That's an element of defense when you talk about site management. So there is a lot that goes into this threat management, but it is as basic as any other thing that we do. And our goal is to work with the community in early prevention. If we can put a lot of our effort into the prevention side of things, we feel like we'll have the most success. Reaction is important, and it's important for all of you to know that it is something that your police department trains very diligently on. We have an all hands on deck training once a year where we train specifically on combating active threats. And when we do that, there's 2 different things that we look at. One is how do we stop the threat? And then 2 is how do we assist people that may be injured? And so there's 2 things that are happening at the same time. So we train our officers for both. And on the helping people side, we also work with fire to see if we can't work together to help get people the help that they need as soon as we can. All right, I'm going to jump in the chat and see if there's any questions. Oh, Laurel says, "Thank you, Team Danville, for getting to Primo so quick last Friday night to keep something unpleasant from getting uglier." Laurel, Primo's is a good partner. They do very well at managing their business, and we are happy that when they saw something, they said something, and that's what we ask. And that is generally good advice for anything that's out there, is if you see something that's out of the ordinary, please call the police. In this particular case, as the officer arrived on scene, He was able to see something that required him to immediately intervene. And I believe from watching like the body cam and all that, that had the officer not done that, there was a potential for some significant violence. So great job on Primos for reporting that. And certainly kudos to the officers for getting there and managing that in a very professional and respectable way. So Laurel, good note there. All right. So I did have one more thing real quick. So I did put the link for this checklist, and again, it's a FEMA checklist, so it's very, very broad. There's topics on active shooter in here. You could probably throw out the avalanche. I don't think Mount Diablo is going to have an avalanche anytime soon, knock on wood. Be prepared for a cyber attack, earthquake. And so there's good checklists, but what I like about the checklist is it's not simply a response to something that's going wrong, right? If you leave this in a drawer and wait for something to happen, well, you've missed half the message. The first half is always going to be what you can do to prepare. So each one of these is set up the same way, and it'll simply have a prepare now section, how to survive, and then what to do after to make sure that you're safe. And so I would encourage you to download this, pick your top 3 or 4 things that you want to work on, and work on those. And so please download this, review it, chuck it in a drawer, and then go to Primo's and have fun with a slice of pizza. All right, ways you can engage with us. We're going to have our Coffee with a Cop over at Lunardi's, and we're going to be out there June 4th. That's going to be a Saturday. So this is going to be our first Saturday we've done in a long time. It's going to be from 10 to 12, so 10 to noon. And Lunardi's is at 345 Railroad Avenue. And we will be out there also collecting for Special Olympics. If you would like to make Danville safer, go ahead and go to the local roadway safety plan. And this is where you can provide your input on what we can do better to serve all of you and make these roads safer. Already incredibly safe, thanks to our transportation managers. And frankly, thanks to all of you saying, there's a problem over there, fix it, right? If you don't tell us where the problems are, we might not catch that one. So we appreciate all that you do. And with that, I'm going to check the chat one more time, but it doesn't look like we've got any other questions. So thanks everyone for joining us tonight. We're 10-10, which means we're off duty, but we're always 10-8 in service to all of you, which means we are here to safeguard the lives, rights, and property of everyone we serve. And we do that to make people's lives better. Have a good night, Danville.